Thanks, Allison. Hi, everyone. As Allison said, I'm Jennifer M. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Jennifer.
I feel very blessed that Allison was at the meeting that she was that day and we connected, and I'm very grateful she's my sponsor. This is my first time ever telling my story, so apologies if I'm nervous. I wasn't nervous all day. I was kind of excited. And then as soon as I stood up here, I got nervous. So sorry. So my life, from an exterior point of view, looked like it was the perfect life. My parents never got divorced, had everything we needed, lived in a nice house. My dad was military, so we moved around a lot. I've been successful in my life, been married for 25 years, have 2 children. But until 1 year ago, 1 year, 7 months, and 7 days ago, I was miserable. I was an alcoholic and I didn't know it. Until I realized I was an alcoholic, I had spent, now it's 38 years. I couldn't believe it when I added it up. 38 years trying to find the perfect drunk and peace of mind. And as I think we all know, you can't find the perfect drunk after the first time you ever have one. I was 12 years old the first time I ever had a drink. And I remember I was playing quarters with my older sister and some other family friends that were much older. And I was like, oh, that looks like fun. I can remember the flowered nightgown that I had on and standing up and going, oh, my head feels funny. But it felt amazing because I was not shy. I felt like, oh, this feels good. It was just an amazing feeling. My parents were always drinkers. There was always alcohol in the house. My dad would come home from work, drink a beer. My mom would swear she had never been drunk, but there were so many nights that she was drunk, and we were like, yeah, you're drunk. And so for the next 38 years, that's what I did. All through my teens, I was always looking for that next time to feel that glorious feeling of being drunk. And there were many opportunities for me to do that. One of that I would take advantage of was when we'd have company over, my parents would always have wine, and not everyone would finish their wine in their glasses. And so I would offer to do the dishes so that I could drink everybody's wine. Nobody knew it was what I was doing at that time. So in addition to my parents being drinkers, they were also kind of very much on keeping up with the Joneses. And they were very much into appearances, very much wanting to have everything. Always, they did instill a really good work ethic for me, but with this whole keeping up with appearances, they gave me a lot of insecurities. And as I've gotten older, I realized that was their own insecurities, and they did the best that they could. And I recognize my own insecurities now, and it took me a long time to do that. Was really, really shy growing up. Like when the teacher would call on me, my face would turn bright red. I was afraid I was going to say something wrong. I wouldn't talk at all. People in high school actually thought I was really conceited because I was so shy. And I feel bad now because I'm like, I wish I would have just not been shy. I probably would have had a lot more fun. But I was always part of the crowd that wanted to get drunk. So spent my whole teenage years getting drunk. I went to high school right outside Washington, D.C., and we could get into D.C. within 20 minutes by driving. And at that point in time, it was 18. And I was probably 16 or 17, but there was a bar called Mr. T's that I could get into, and they didn't care. As long as you had dollars in your hand, they would serve you. And so there's so many stories like going to Mr. T's. Throughout my teens, my early 20s, the first night I was at my college, I met some new friends, and we were doing Eye of the Tiger shots. And the police got called for some reason, and they had to convince the police that I wasn't as drunk as I was, but I was completely incoherent. And so all of that time, I was looking for a peace of mind that I was good enough. I was looking for a peace of mind that I could be the person that I felt I was when I was drunk. And I find that really sad now. I shouldn't find it sad, but I do find it sad now. So I was always looking for that. When let's see, yeah, I talked about I met my husband at a bar, and it was called Old Chicago's, and then we moved to Chicago, and we lived in Chicago for 27 years. So I think that was my first God shot that I met my husband there. He's a great person. He's a saint for putting up with me for all the years that he has. He's lucky. He's a normie. He's not an alcoholic. And there were many years he would say, "Can't you just have one glass of wine?" And I'd be like, "What is the point of just one glass of wine? No, I can't." So until I was 50, the only times that I was ever really sober were when I was pregnant with my two kids. And even then, I couldn't stay sober. Towards the end of it, I was like, oh, I can just have half a glass of wine. No problem. And I have had an amazing career. Like I've been successful at everything I've done. I've been really lucky that way. I've worked really hard. I've never told myself I couldn't do anything, but I never felt like it was enough. And when my kids were growing up, I loved being a mom. And I think like most alcoholics, I'm a control freak. I wanted to plan everything out. And when you have little kids, you can plan everything. You can control everything they can do. As they grew up and they didn't need me as much, I started to go, oh my God, what's my purpose in life? I'm a mom, but what am I going to do? I can't control everything that they do. And about that time, COVID hit. And then everything got out of control. And so I more frequently was turning to alcohol. And I was always, when my kids were really little, I thought I was hiding it from them, but I would put them in bed. I'd go down to the kitchen. I'd quietly open the bottle of wine as quietly as I could. I'd pour it in the glass. And it wasn't just like a half glass, it was like half bottle glass. And years later, my kids would say, Mom, we could hear you opening the bottle of wine at night. And I was like, oh, that was so sly. And as you know, the alcoholic disease progressively gets worse. I started drinking then every single night. It was always a glass of wine. And my kids started noticing it more and more. And then I would get to the point where I would start blacking out and I wouldn't remember what I was saying to them. Towards the end, my son was 12/13 years old, and he would say to me, Mom, please don't get drunk tonight. Please don't get drunk. And I would be like, why? And there were a couple of occasions where he decided he was going to either hide my wine, which pissed me off, or one night for dinner, I was preparing dinner and I poured a glass of wine and I set it down on the table. I was fixing dinner, and then we all sat down and I took a sip, and he had poured out my wine and put in vegetable oil because it was the exact same color as my Sauvignon Blanc that I loved. And I got really mad at him, and I looked at him and I was like, you little shit. But that was him crying out for help, saying, please don't. And my daughter would say to me, Mom, there's more productive things to do than get drunk. And I would say, like, what? What would be the point? But throughout that time, I was really questioning, why do I get drunk every single night? Why can't I stop? I would wake up in the morning and I would look at myself and I would say, who is this person? I don't like this person. I was looking older. I was questioning, what did I do the night before? How many fights did I pick the night before? What did I say? And I would say, okay, I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to drink. And I tried that whole measured drinking business, and 5 p.m. would come around and I'd be like, nope, I'm not going to make it tonight. Just one drink. And where I lived in Illinois at the time. There was an Al-Anon club right up the street from where I lived. And I would drive by it and I would see it and I would say, maybe I should go check that out. But I never had the courage to do it. I thought I might have a problem. I didn't know what to do about it. I just knew drinking made me feel good and it was my escape, but then it made me feel like crap and it wasn't my escape anymore. And so my last drunk was December 14th, of 2021. And I remember that night, all day long, I was like, okay, I'm not going to drink. Everything's going to be great. And then, nope, got really, really drunk, probably drank a bottle and a half of wine. And I had graduated to boxes of wine instead of bottles because nobody could tell how much I had drank out of the box versus the bottle. And I also felt like the neighbors were probably peering in my garbage can going, oh my God, how many bottles are in that garbage can? And I can remember picking a fight with my son, and my husband was out of town working, and he called, and I just went off on something. And I can remember thinking in my brain, you're crazy. This is not normal. This is not how normal people live. And so I went to bed, and I had these feelings also of like, when I would get up in the morning and I'd look at myself in the mirror, I didn't want to get up anymore. I had started to have those feelings of, I just don't want to get up. Can I just please not wake up? And I told my husband that. I said, there's something wrong with me. I don't know what to do. I think maybe I should go to an AA meeting, but I don't know how to do that. And he was like, he had no idea what to tell me. So the next day I woke up, and at work, I had I got to keep talking. At work, they had changed the EAP at my office, and they said, here's a new phone number. And I ended up calling the phone number, and this guy talked to me for an hour, probably an hour and 15 minutes, talked me off a ledge. I told him my whole story. I told him how I felt. He said, it sounds like an AA meeting might be a good idea. And I said, I should probably go to one tonight. He said, you should or you are? And I said, I am. So it was December in Chicago area, super cold. I remember it was a really cold night. It was at 8 p.m. was the meeting. And I said, all right, I'm going to go. So I go to this church down the street, and I walk in at 10 to 8, and everybody's walking out of the room. And I thought, oh. And I said, oh, is there a meeting tonight? And they said, oh, we just changed the time from 8 to 7 like 3 weeks ago, and we're done with our meeting for the night. And I went, okay. And this woman, one of my saviors, Judy, looked at me and said, is this your first meeting? And I said, yes. And I started crying. And she turned around and she said, everybody, let's go back in the room. And everybody turned around. I'm getting chills now remembering it. Everybody turned around, went back in the room, sat there and talked to me for another hour, gave me a big book, gave me a phone number, let me tell my story, and let me do a step one. My life was unmanageable. I could not take it anymore. And I'm so thankful that I did have the courage to go to that meeting, because I've never looked back. For me, had hit my rock bottom. I never want to go back to that again. I never want to have those feelings of waking up thinking my life is miserable. The program has given me so much. I moved a year ago, 6 months into sobriety. So June of 2022, I moved here to Seattle, and I'd only been to Seattle one time, and that had been 3 weeks before we moved. So it was a big change for me. And everyone says, don't do many big changes when you're newly sober. And I was like, I'm going to change everything. Luckily, I didn't get divorced. But if I had not had the program, I would probably have, I don't know where I would be. First of all, I probably would have had a DUI, because this place is so curvy and twisty and turny. I would have been drinking and driving and either be dead or had a DUI. I probably wouldn't have moved here if I didn't have the program either. But now that I'm here, I've met so many people that have given me support. My sponsor is here in Seattle. I have a home group in Bellevue that I go to every Saturday morning. I'm going to be the chair for the District 34 Gratitude Dinner this year. I love being of service. It's through all of this, I was looking for peace in my life, and I finally found it at 50 years old. And so for me, the next 50 years is going to be amazing. I don't have that self-doubt. I don't have that fear. I don't have that angst. I don't have that anxiety. I just can enjoy. I can be thankful for my day. I can be thankful for being present and thankful for everything I have. Thanks for letting me share.